We are live. Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, they say not to do that, but I have to. I don't get any sleep, especially with what I've been doing all day. I'm useless. I don't get some sleep. Thank you, Madam. That was again tonight. Me too. I know blackberries out there.
How's everyone today? Alhamdulillah. Okay, you want to turn on more of the lights, please? Do you need the fans? Or is it comfortable? Yeah. I think the fans are in the back, right?
I don't know why the guys in the same place.
We're on Surah number 97.
Somebody asked me, if you forget to shower on a Friday, is your salah voided?
So, making ghusl on Friday is one of the sunnahs. It's recommended that we do so. It should not be something that we miss or miss often. But if somebody did not make ghusl on a Friday, their prayer is still valid as long as they are in a state which is clean. Right. Or they didn't need to make ghusl, right? But if somebody missed it, their prayer is still valid and correct.
I have a question about showering in general.
Yes.
Are you supposed to shower like clothes?
No.
So it's okay, it's permissible to shower?
Yes. Yes.
Because I was told that,
No.
I don't know where that came from. But
I think in general, somebody may have been saying in general, if somebody is not clothed, then the angels don't come to that person. So it shouldn't be a habit to just be in that state around the house.
okay.
But as for showering and such, I mean, then you would need to.
I was confused about that.
Yeah. So no, and in the book, I believe if you go back to the chapters uh on purification in this book, it'll tell you like there's a certain method uh to take a shower properly.
Okay.
Right.
Is that a muscle?
Um, Again, anything that somebody says, we should always refer back to knowledge, because people will say things um, without knowing the evidence behind it, or they may say things that they learned culturally or something like that. But we always have to refer back to knowledge and evidence. Any other questions before we start? Okay. We are on Surah Al Qadr, Surah number 97. I'll give you a minute to find that in your books. We did Surah Bayina last time. We are on Surah Qadr now. 97. Everybody got it? So, Diana, you got it?
Which ayah?
Surah number 97.
Surah 97, but which ayah?
We're starting from the beginning. 97:1. Okay. Surah Al Qadr. Um, this Al Qadr here, there's a number of translations. It can mean destiny, it can mean decree, it can mean power. The word Qadr has a number of different meanings, which all complement each other in this surah and are all fine. This surah, it could be Makkah, it could be a Makkah surah, it could be a surah revealed in Medina. There's evidence for both. And a lot of times it was not recorded when the surah was revealed, just the surah was recorded. But it seems like from the content that was revealed in Makkah, because it talks more about the time of the revelation of the Quran. And this surah talks about how important the night itself is that the Quran was revealed on. And if that night is important and has so much importance, then how important is the Quran itself? Right? Laylatul Qadr shows up. You know, we observe it every Ramadan in the last 10 nights, and we wait for it. And that night is blessed because the Quran was revealed on that night, and that whole month is blessed because the Quran was revealed in that month. So these things are there for us to also reflect on the blessing of the Quran itself. The Quran was revealed on the most blessed man to ever walk on the face of the earth, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't do these things. He chose exactly where, when, and who to reveal this on. And he sent it through the archangel, his highest, most honorable angel, Gabriel. And he preserved it so that we have the same Quran that was revealed to him on the night of power. You know, we have the same Quran today that we can read. So not only is that night important, but the Quran itself is also very important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Indeed, we sent it down on the night of decree. And it meaning here is the Quran. We sent the Quran down on the night of decree, on the night of power. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. And what can make you know what the night of decree is? What kind of question is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answering here, asking here? We use this in English as well, right? Rhetorical questions, where he's asking a question to not really as a question, but to call our attention to something, right? We have rhetorical questions in English too, right? And you'll see this in the Quran as well, that he'll ask a question to get our attention that the next piece of information is coming and it's going to clarify what that question is. Laylatul Qadri khairum min alfi shahr. The night of decree is better than 1,000 months. So if this night, again, the night of decree, the night of power, the value of it and the blessings of it and the good deeds done in it are equivalent or better than 1,000 months, then we should also reflect on the importance of the Quran, which is the reason why this night is so blessed. تنزيل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. The angels and the ruh means the spirit, Gabriel, descend therein by the permission of their Lord for every matter. And so the explanation here is the things that are decreed to happen within the next year are revealed on that night. Every night, whatever is going to happen on the earth, they're brought down to the earth, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already decreed what's going to happen. But that is with him in Allah al-Mahfuz, which is in the heavens. And parts of it are brought down when he wants them to be brought down. So one of the explanations here is that the angels bring down the decree to the earth for the rest of the year. And this is another reason why this night is important, because we want to be worshiping on this night. We want to be in the best state. So when things are decided, that because we know that our du'as, our supplications, help us to get a better decree, a better outcome in this life. For example, if somebody's life was going in a direction where they were sick all the time and they made supplication, that supplication was accepted, now the direction of their life starts changing and they become healthier. Right? So our du'as, our supplications can change, as one of the hadith says, it can change the qadr, can change the decree. Salamun hiya hatta matla'il fajr. And peace there is until the emergence of the dawn. So the peace here meaning the blessings, the tranquility, the sakina, all this, which also, basically means tranquility. That's that goes up until the time of Fajr, the time of the dawn. That's when the night ends. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tells us that these blessings that are available to you on that night are until the dawn. So we worship all the way up until the dawn, and then that night is finished. And it tells us the importance that yes, this night is there, but it has an end point. So observe it at its proper time. So this is Surah Al-Qadr. Any questions? If these questions show up on a quiz, everybody will get them right? Inshallah? All right. Inshallah. I mean, we have a quiz tonight.
On what?
I announced it in the group. There's a quiz tonight on what we read the last couple of weeks. Well, being absent is not an excuse because you can watch the videos which are recorded and you can look over the book. So it's all there. All right, we're on page 178 in the book. Before we get into that, I think we have some announcements, right? I think all of you have already transferred over, but we are transferring over the group chat from WhatsApp to Signal. Um, it's well known that WhatsApp is owned by the same group as Facebook. They support Zionism very clearly, and we're trying our best to not use that platform as much. It's difficult, but I think we can do it. So we're moving to Signal, which is more secure and is run by a company which doesn't support Zionism and genocide. So,
Yeah.
so that's where we are with that. So please um, transfer over, install it, and join the group chat there because we will be shutting down this group chat in the coming week. The one that's on WhatsApp, we'll be shutting that down. Second, we have there's no Quran class this weekend. There's Sunday class that's normally there. The Sheikh is traveling, so we won't have Quran class this weekend. We will have our normal food distribution, the food drive at Monroe Park. If anybody can come. Last week we had no volunteers. Luckily, there were some kids who were able to help me, my own kids, but we do need some volunteers. I mean, um, but we do need some volunteers out there. It's an excellent opportunity to give dawah, to uh, feed people. If you've seen the pictures, we serve at least 70 to 80 people every week. So
Other groups to get volunteers?
I have to make a new flyer for it as well because the other one's getting kind of old. But I actually need people to do this. Like I can make the flyers, but just somebody be diligent about just posting it places um, because I just can't do everything. Um,
If you make a digital flyer, I can post it in the ladies' groups.
Okay.
And tell them to forward it to their kids or teenagers looking for.
yeah, and that's the other thing. The teenagers who are looking for volunteer hours
Yeah,
because they're required in a number. I think all the high schools require volunteer hours. I can sign off on that because we have an official nonprofit. So anybody shows up, we can get them the volunteer hours as well. But even other than that, us as adults, we should do this. This is something we should be involved in. Mashallah, mashallah. Diligent brothers with their fresh cut. How's it going? Allah. Grab a book, or you have the 178. We're just about to start. Have you joined the new group yet? Okay, please do that because we'll be shutting down the WhatsApp group. Red container. We'll be shutting down the WhatsApp group this week. So please join the group on Signal so we can coordinate. We don't have Quran class this week, but we do have Monroe Park. All right, page 178. 178. Okay, so just a quick recap of where we are. We're in the chapter that discusses financial transactions. Before this, we discussed the belief system of Islam. We discussed the 5 pillars, but we also know that Islam is a complete way of life, which gives us guidance for every minute of our lives. Financial transactions are something very important. They're a big part of our lives, and Islam has guidance for us of how to do them correctly and what to avoid to cause harm to ourselves and that would cause harm to others. So these financial transactions are important, and it's an important place to study because a lot of these things are very new. When somebody comes from a lifestyle that is not based on Islam and suddenly they come into Islam, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses them, but a lot of these concepts are very foreign and haven't been thought about before. So this is why and we're taking our time with this, going through it in a lot of detail with a lot of examples, just so that we can understand and consume this better. So in the chapter on financial transactions, we talked about there's two types of transactions that are unlawful in Islam. First, the transactions that involve things that themselves are forbidden or impure, that the item itself is forbidden or impure. And we talked about what these are, like selling alcohol, selling pork, um, selling dead animals for consumption, and these types of things, which no matter what, because the item itself is haram, the transaction is also haram, right? Is that pretty straightforward, or does anybody have any question on that? We went through that. Then we talked about the second thing, which is um, the item itself is fine, but the way the transaction done is not permissible, right? For example, buying a car, it's permissible. We all have cars, and it's permissible. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's how you do it that makes it unpermissible. For example, if it's bought through riba, through interest, and we'll go into them. I'll review it, but these are ways. Or if it's bought in a way that's deceitful, the seller deceives somebody or the buyer deceives somebody. These things will make that transaction forbidden for us. So the first thing in making our transactions, what would make our transactions forbidden, is usury riba. And we talked about what that means. For example, if I lend somebody money, I lend somebody $1,000, and I require payment back for it to be $1,200. This is not correct. I cannot charge more than what I lent. This is interest and usury, and it is forbidden. The other way it's done is if I go to a bank and I take out a loan and I have to pay a certain amount of interest on it, this is also not permissible. We talked about some of the punishments for riba, for interest. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's something that has very unique and harsh punishments attached to it. And these are not even all of them. The one that is the scariest is that where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that those who persist in usury and in riba, there is an announcement of war from Allah and His Messenger. And there's nothing that could be worse than being at war with Allah and His Messenger. Nothing. So this is not something we should take lightly just because it's very prevalent in this society. It's very prevalent not only amongst non-Muslims, it's prevalent amongst Muslims nowadays because a lot of our khatibs, a lot of our imams and people giving sermons don't want to talk about it. And it's prevalent because a lot of people they just want to go with the flow and do what everybody else is doing, and they have to, as they say, compete with the Joneses. So it's become prevalent, and it's not something that we should take lightly. It's my job here to make sure that uh, we study and understand what's authentic, and I can't sugarcoat things. I mean,
There's a bank accounts, and checking accounts, and savings accounts, they're all interest bearing.
well, we talked about this last week. So on a checking account, you normally don't earn any interest in it. They don't add anything to your checking account. In a savings account,
Oh, they do, 'cause
No, it's
I
low,
see that,
it's like low.
it's pennies, but it's still interest.
no, I mean it depends on the account. Like I know in my account, there's nothing. They don't add anything. They are so you always have options in different banks, right? There's there's just a straight basic checking, right? And then there's a checking with interest, and you get like 1% or 2%. And then there's a savings account where you don't really have access to your money as often, and you get maybe like 4% or whatever.
High yield,
Yeah, high yield. So there's all these different options. You just go with the
What
option.
about those low interest amounts, are they still just as haram?
Well, because that haram is being mixed with your halal. So you don't want to have that. So just go with what doesn't give that to you in the first place.
And you can request that.
No, I mean there's different options, and if your bank doesn't have that option, just go to the next one. Right? So there's plenty of different options in that. Alhamdulillah, we have those options. And we talked about why, a little bit of the why and of the why riba is so strictly forbidden, and um, how it has a lot of really bad effects on society. So, for example, it creates an imbalance in wealth because all that happens is poor people, middle class people take out these loans for things that they want normally, usually not things that they need, and they're just paying more and more and more to people who already have a lot of money in the banks, and it just keeps, you know, sucking people dry, to the point where people take out so many loans and credit that their whole, you know, uh, earnings for the month are already spent before they even started. Like everything is, they're just in so much debt that they can never get out of it. It's like another form of servitude, that you have all this debt and you never own anything because you can never really pay it off. Um, so that's one part of it. Second, it makes it so easy. It makes it so quote unquote easy for people to get a loan that people will start doing so frivolously, and now you're just spending way more money than you really need to be spending. Um, Instead of staying within your means and saying, okay, well, I can do, um, I can do well with, you know, um, a small car. Now I need to get something that's very expensive because the money is available to me. And the system is such that, they start you off right when you're 18 with student loans, and they expect an 18-year-old fresh out of high school to start making these financial decisions that they're really not equipped to make, but will last a lifetime with them. Now they're taking out these huge loans that they have to pay back, and they really don't understand the ramifications of it.
They don't teach about it in high school.
Right. They really don't teach you not to do that. And this is why this topic is important, that we talk about it, and we talk about it with young people so that they don't start down this line uh, in the beginning. Because once somebody starts and gets all these loans, it's hard to get out of them. So the best strategy is don't get into them. Yes, it contributes to like a heedless lifestyle. Like you just spend and spend and spend, and it's really, you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. You're not, uh, because there's something to be said for zuhud, something to be said for being not like in love with materials. And we see this theme over and over again in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tries to, it tells us to direct our attention to afterlife and not pay so much attention to this life. And we've talked about this. There's nothing wrong with earning a good living, even be wealthy, very wealthy. Some of the companions were very wealthy, but that wasn't their purpose of their life. That wasn't their obsession. It wasn't what was driving them day and night. And that's what starts happening when we start competing in the dunya. All right. Um, okay. So other than that, we talked about deception through ignorance and uncertainty, which is gharar. Um, and we talked a little bit about that, which so if there's a transaction where you don't know what you're buying or selling, this is not permissible. So, for example, um, we talked about like, hey, here's a mystery box. It's like, okay, well, I'll buy the mystery box for $100. I don't know what's in the mystery box. It could be 3 Q-tips, and now, I'm out $100 because I didn't get anything out of it, right? So this type of transaction where you don't know what's being bought is not permissible. Why? Because there's a deception in it. Somebody is going to lose out and then feel bad. And what does that cause? That causes conflict in society. That causes, bad blood between brothers. And that's not what we want. Um, also, um, selling a car, let's say, that has huge problems and they don't tell you about it. Right? A lot of us have been on the wrong side of that. It's not permissible. That they should either tell you or allow you to take it to a mechanic to get it checked out. If they don't want to tell you everything, they can just say, okay, well, it's as is. Take it to a mechanic and get it checked out so you know before you buy. But if there's huge major faults in it and they've covered it up and they didn't tell you about it, then it's not permissible. And this is not how we should sell things either. While we may think that if we tell everybody everything, we're not going to make any money. That might be true, but what value is that money if you deceived somebody? A lot of times we have to stop thinking about the number of what we have and start thinking about the blessings, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us blessings in little where we can stretch that and we can live off of that more peacefully and more comfortably and sleep well at night than a person who's deceiving somebody else. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking it back in different ways. Their kids are getting sick. They get into an accident. Now they're dealing with a terminal illness, and now they're dealing with this, that, and the other, which are all punishments for them doing the wrong thing. All right, so that's
I feel like it's the quality of the earning, not the quantity.
and that's with everything in Islam, right?
Yes, makes a huge difference. And you are so right when you say that when you're earning halal and it stretches, that money seems to just be provision for everything. And then when you're not earning halal, it's like,
Everything's tight.
yeah, everything is going, but it's like, where did the money go?
Yeah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
So we have to stop thinking about things which are just, the numerical aspect of something, and start having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a part of having faith, right? We may see like, okay, I can do this transaction, or I can get this job, and it's really high paying and it's really profitable. But it's not right with Allah. And that sacrifice is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. These are the tests in life. And this is why, this dunya has restrictions. This world has restrictions for us. And these are just tests for us. All right. So we're on page 178. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? All right. Page 178. Injustice and wrongfully taking other people's property. Who would like to read?
Injustice and wrongfully taking other people's property. Injustice is one of the most heinous deeds against which Islam has vehemently warned. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in this connection, beware of injustice, for indeed injustice will be darkness on the day of judgment. Indeed, Islam considers the act of taking other people's property wrongfully, no matter how small this property may be, one of the most odious sins, and warns those who commit it against severe punishment in the hereafter. As the Prophet ﷺ said, if anyone takes a span of land unjustly, its extent taken from 7 earths will be tied round his neck on the day of resurrection.
So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, reminds us that to beware of injustice. And injustice will be darkness on the day of judgment. So Islam promotes justice, promotes fairness, protects our property. We talked about this in the beginning, right? Where when we talk about what Islam protects our lives, our honor, our wealth, our families, our lineage, and these are why certain things are forbidden for us. So one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Islam protects is our property. Nobody would like it if people just started stealing things from us. And we shouldn't be doing that to other people as well. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, mentions that anyone takes a handspan worth of land unjustly, then it is stretched out to 7 heavens and will be tied around to 7 earths and will be tied around his neck on the day of judgment. So it's a very severe punishment for stealing land. And that was, you have to think back to a lot of these societies that are agricultural. What would you have? You have a fence or you have a line of demarcation that's here. And what would people do? Well, they move it over a few feet. So they take some land from somebody else. This is not permissible. Or, in other ways. So in Islam, we cannot take somebody's property, money unjustly. Continue.
Examples of forms of injustice committed in business transactions. 1, coercion. A transaction that is conducted under coercion in any form whatsoever invalidates the contract. Indeed, mutual consent between the parties of the contract is a necessary condition for the validity of a business transaction. As the Prophet ﷺ once observed, a sale is a sale only if it is made through mutual consent.
Okay, so he gives now some examples of injustice that are committed in business transactions. The first one he says is coercion. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says a sale is a sale only through mutual consent. You can't force somebody to sell something to you or create a lot of, put somebody under pressure that they have to sell it to you. And this is true with all things, all kind of contracts. For a marriage contract, you can't force somebody to sign a marriage contract. That's not valid. You can't force somebody to divorce. This is not valid. And same thing with a business transaction. You cannot force it upon somebody. They have to have a choice, and they have to consent to that contract or that transaction. Number 2.
Dishonesty. Deceiving other people to take their property wrongfully is one of the major sins. As the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever cheats us is not one of us. Once while the Prophet ﷺ was walking in the market, he passed by a pile of food and put his hand inside it. Feeling water on his fingers, he turned to the seller of the food and said, "What is this?" "It was left out in the rain, Messenger of Allah." He replied, "Why don't you put the wet food on top of the pile so the people can see it?" The Prophet ﷺ disapprovingly said, "Whoever deceives us is not one of us." So dishonesty in any transaction is also a form of injustice. A lot of times we'll see this
When you go to buy produce, the stuff on the top will be nice, and as soon as you pick out what's underneath it, it's all overripened or rotten or something like this. Especially if you buy things in bulk, this happens a lot, and they do this on purpose, right? The top layer will be nice and beautiful, and you'll think that's what you're gonna get, and they've deceived you. And this is what happened one time. He was walking, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was walking through the market, and he saw a pile of food. The top food on the top was nice, and underneath it was wet and had been, affected by rain. And he told the person that, you should make it apparent, put that on top. Why you putting the good stuff on the top, and then they, are buying something that's not. And he said, he who deceives us is not from one of us. Not from one of us means not from the Muslims. And this is a warning. And we've talked about these kind of warnings before. It's not upon us to say that, hey, somebody cheated, so he's not a Muslim anymore. He's outside of the fold of Islam. This is not for us to judge that person based on this hadith. But this hadith is a warning to anybody that this type of cheating can take you out of the fold of Islam, or can be something that that ends up in very severe punishment for you. Let's have somebody else read. Number 3.
Number 3, manipulating the law. Some cunning people, when presenting their cases in court, speak in honeyed tones and in a convincing manner in order to get other people's property wrongfully, not realizing that even if the judge rules in their favor, he cannot possibly turn falsehood to truth. Addressing some of his companions, the Prophet ﷺ said, "I'm only a human being. Litigants come to me to settle their disputes. It may be that one or two may present his case more eloquently and in a more convincing way than his opponent, whereby I might consider him to be in the right and thus pass a judgment in his favor based on what I have heard. Therefore, if I ever give the right of a Muslim to another by mistake, while he knows that he is in the wrong, then the one in the wrong must not take it, for I will actually be giving him only a piece of fire."
So manipulating the law, you'll see that some people will, they're really slick, they're really cunning, and they'll try to take something legally that's not theirs.
Like through a loophole or something.
So it's a loophole. So like there's certain laws where something, if you live in somebody's house, you haven't paid rent for it, but you've lived a certain amount of time,
They can't take you
they
out.
can't kick you out, and you can actually have partial ownership of it in certain ways, things like that, right? So they squat and they try to take your land and then fight it legally, and now they, own your land, right? This is not permissible. Even if the court or the law of that land ruled in your favor, if you had no right to that, it's you're just stealing. And the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, mentioned this, that people come to me with their cases, and it may be that somebody is more convincing than the other. And if I rule in that person's favor and he knows that he's not in the right, then all he's taking is a piece of the hellfire. All he's taking is a piece of the hellfire. So again, there are warnings here that we should not do this type of thing. Number 4.
Bribery. Bribery is a sum of money given or a service rendered in order to influence the judgment or conduct of a person in a position of trust and thus get something illegally. Islam considers bribery one of the most atrocious forms of injustice and one of the most heinous sins. The Prophet ﷺ went as far as to curse those who give bribes and those who accept them. When bribery becomes widespread, it destroys the very fabric of society and affects its development and prosperity.
Okay, so the 4th thing he mentions here is bribery. Bribery is when,
APAD.
yes, yeah, that's also a form of bribery, lobbies. But it's when you buy government officials or some type of official, you give them money to rule in your favor or to help you get certain things which you're not entitled to. For example, if there's a court case, let's say, and um, two people are litigating about a piece of land, or numerous people have applied for that piece of land, and but one person goes and starts paying off the officials that, hey, if you give this to me, this, and this. That's bribery. That's not. It's not your right, and you took something that now doesn't belong to you. And this is very common. Has become very common, especially in a lot of the Muslim countries, um, where officials and government officials are bribed to favor one person or the other, and uh, this is a sin. And the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, went as far to curse those who give the bribes to get something unjustly, and those who take the bribes, which they're earning unjust money for. Question? Okay, let's continue.
What is the Islamic ruling regarding a person who has taken people's property before embracing Islam? If a person embraces Islam while he is still in possession of money, which he has acquired as a result of deceiving or assaulting others through theft or embezzlement, for instance, then he must return it to his legal owners as long as he knows them and can do so without incurring any harm whatsoever upon himself. Even if he has committed such an injustice before embracing Islam, the money he has taken from other people wrongfully is still in his possession. He must return it to its legitimate owners, as the Quran states. Allah commands you to deliver trust back to their owners. If, however, he does not know its rightful owners, after exhausting all possible ways to find out who they are, he can get rid of it by giving it away to charity.
So the question is, what if someone um, has property or wealth that they acquired through injustice, and they did this before Islam? So what do they do now? Or they did it while they were Muslim, and now they're realizing that I shouldn't have really done that, right? It applies in different ways, right? So what do they do? What should they do? They should do their utmost to return it back to the person who they committed the injustice against, and try to deliver that back. And if they cannot find that person, or they don't know how that was done, then they should take that amount and give it in charity, because that amount is not permissible anymore for you. Yes.
The part where it says, for instance, and he must return it to his legal owner as long as he knows them and can do so without incurring any harm whatsoever upon himself. So what if he returned it to them and maybe they wanted to harm him, or he could get incarcerated, or whatever it was. Maybe they would retaliate against him.
Right. So if he knows that these harmful things could happen to him, then maybe give it to that person anonymously is one way to do it. Try to return it honestly, and if not, he repents to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gives that in charity or something like that. All right, let's move right along. So hopefully we can finish this chapter today. Gambling. Gambling is something that's forbidden in Islam. Gambling is very harmful. It's addictive. It rips families apart. It destroys people's wealth. And once again, it's the poor getting poorer and the rich getting richer. Because as they say, the house always wins. These big companies that are giving out millions and millions in the lottery, you think they're giving out of the generosity of their heart? No. It's because they've made way more than that off of the tickets that they've sold. So they're just taking people's money without any, people don't win. Maybe one person wins and so many people have incurred losses. So gambling is something that is strictly forbidden in Islam, and we should not take part of it, whether it's something small, we think it's trivial, or whether it's serious gambling. So gambling has a definition. Who would like to read?
I agree.
Thank you.
So gambling is the act of risking money upon the outcome of a contest of chance. In this way, a person risks money upon an agreement that he or someone else will receive something of value in the event of a certain outcome. Put simple, gambling involves betting that must result either in gain or a loss, and the gambler profits solely at the other person's loss.
All right. So it's a game of chance, and you're putting money in a game of chance on outcome. Think about roulette, right? You just put money on a number, and that roulette wheel spins. If the number comes up, you get it. If it don't, you lost your money.
Right, but
It's a
if
gamble.
you get it, then you've just taken other people's.
You've just taken other people's money. There's people losing in this. Like I said, the house always wins. Um, there's no way. You see these companies like the MGM Grand and all these. They're hugely wealthy companies. Why? The gambling industry is hugely wealthy. Like there's so much money made off of people who get addicted to this, or people who don't even get addicted and just casually gamble, but they're just losing their money. Okay. Yes. Continue, please.
The Islamic ruling on gambling. Gambling is strictly forbidden, as supported by textual evidence from the Quran and the Prophet's traditions, including the following. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers the sin of engaging in gambling to be far greater than the Prophet gained from it, as the Quran states. They will ask you about the alcoholic drinks and gambling. Say, there's great wrong in both of them, and also certain benefits of mankind. But the wrong in them is greater than the benefit.
So in Surah Baqarah, ayat number 219, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in regards to alcohol and gambling, that there are certain benefits in them for mankind, but there's the wrong in them is greater than their benefits. So when we hear that a glass of wine every day will ward off heart disease, when we hear these types of studies, we know that, okay, well, while there may be certain benefits, we know the harm of alcohol is much greater than any of the benefits that they can bring forth. They found that to be false. So it's not a real thing. Yeah, that was. I remember that was in the news when I was young, and I was disturbed by it. So I asked my father, and he quoted this verse that there may be certain benefits, but their harm outweighs their benefits. And the same thing is with gambling. There may be certain benefits. Some people win, right? It's a benefit, but the harm outweighs that. Why? When you look at over that person's lifetime, unless they win like a huge jackpot, they probably lost. Even if if somebody who's consistently gambling at casinos and stuff, they may win a couple times. But if they look consistently over their life, unless they won this huge lottery jackpot, they've lost. And even if they won a huge jackpot, think about society, how many people lost. That's hard-earned money from everybody, but people don't think about it. It's just a daily thing for somebody. A lot of people, they go to the gas station after work, and they get a pack of cigarettes and a lottery ticket and a beer. Right? All three things haram.
Killing them all 3 ways.
Yep. And just wasting their money. Wasting their money, wasting their spiritual existence.
And a lot of people, they don't just buy a dollar lottery ticket. They're spending like $20 a day.
Yeah, they're spending quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
$15, $20. I know they've made it so easy now that you can gamble on your phones, especially the sports gambling.
Oh, yeah.
And so many people are involved in it because it's on your phones now. You don't have to go to a place to buy a ticket or a bookie or call people up. You just have the app on your phone, so they made it like a game.
And this is so dangerous. A couple that I know, customer not Muslim, but this goes to show you that through those apps on the phone, her husband lost $200,000, their entire savings. that they have built up their whole marital life in a matter of maybe 8 or 9 months.
In 8 or 9 months, they lost $200,000
Yes.
to gambling.
Yes,
Wow.
and lost his family because she filed for divorce.
Yeah, and they lost their family. These things break up families. They destroy people.
Yeah.
Somebody asked a question: is it authentic that betting on horse, camel races, and archery contests? No, the contests themselves are permissible, but betting on them is not permissible. Having a reward for them is okay. Having a reward for a contest is different than betting on a contest. Having a reward would mean that,
The winner, right?
right? So there's a contest, and people are doing an archery contest, and there's 10 contestants, and the winner gets a cup, or gets $100. That's fine. It's a reward for the person who had the most skill. But if I, as a third person, I'm not shooting any arrows even, and I'm saying, well, my money is on number 3, then I'm gambling on them, then this is not permissible.
Because that's chance, not skill.
That's chance, not skill. And even if it is skill, even if I know that that's a better archer than the others, it's still not permissible.
Yeah,
Still
because
gambling.
it's not you doing the skill.
Right.
Can you bet on yourself?
No. No. The only time this type of thing was allowed, and because it was 100% chance, that when the Surah Ar-Rum was revealed, yes, alunaka al-Rum, right? So in that, the context of that was the Persians and the Romans were fighting wars at that time. The idolaters of Makkah, they supported the Persians because they were also idol worshippers. The Zoroastrians are also idol worshippers in many ways. And the Muslims would support the Romans because the Christians were still people of the book, and they would support them. So in this surah, the Romans were dealt a huge defeat, and everybody thought they would never recover from it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, in a few years, you'll see that the Romans will overcome the Persians. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu wagered with somebody over this because he knew it was going to happen. So there was no chance anymore because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said it. So this is going to happen. So that was permissible. Okay. Okay. Next, keep reading, please. Number 2, I think you're on here. Yeah.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considered it to be a type of filth and abomination due to its detrimental effects on the individual and society. It commands the faithful to avoid it as it sows enmity and hatred amongst them and turns them away from remembrance of Allah and from the prayer as the Quran states. O you who believe, intoxicants, gambling, stone altars, and
Divining, yeah.
are abominations devised by Satan. And avoid them so that you may be successful. Satan only seeks to sow enmity and hatred among you by means of wine and gambling, and to keep you from the remembrance of God and from your prayers. Will you not then abstain?
All right. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah number 5, verses number 90 and 91, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that, oh, you who believe, intoxicants, and it's noteworthy here, it doesn't just say alcohol, it says intoxicants. So intoxicants can mean things that are like alcohol, mind-altering drugs, cocaine, marijuana, heroin, these types of drugs, which are mind-altering, they are also not permissible. So it says intoxicants, gambling, stone altars means things that are sacrificed on stone altars to other than Allah, and dividing by arrows, which was a way um, the people of the past used to um, determine things. So for example, they would take out an arrow, and if it was pointing in a certain direction, then they would travel that day, and if not, they wouldn't. Like good luck and bad luck, basically. The whole like, hey, if there's a black cat, you're gonna have bad luck, right? That type of thing. So they would, before they take a journey, they would divide by arrows, which mean they would take out some arrows or shoot some arrows, and if it landed in a certain place or pointed in a certain direction, that would mean it's good luck. And if not, it would be bad luck, and they would not leave for that journey. This is not permissible. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that wine and gambling only creates animosity and hatred between you. Okay. Keep going. Let's keep going here.
Detrimental effects of gambling on the individual and society. Gambling has numerous adverse effects on the individual and society, including the following. Number one, it
Precipitates.
precipitates, this is a long day, imminently and hatred among gamblers. But when friends gamble and one of them wins and takes their money, they will undoubtedly feel hatred towards them and hold grudges against them, and even plot against them and harm him. This is a known fact that is based upon observation. The Quran states in this context, Satan only seeks to sow enmity and hatred among you by means of wine and gambling. Besides, it distracts you from the obligatory prayers and the remembrance of Allah. As the Quran states in the context of mentioning Satan's tireless effort to make gambling look good to men and to keep you from the remembrance of Allah and from the prayers.
Okay, so we kind of talked about this. That also noteworthy here is that alcohol and gambling, they're so addictive that the person who's involved in them forgets about their prayers. Somebody who's drunk can't pray. I mean, they forget what they're supposed to say, right? So they forget about their prayers and they don't remember Allah. And we should be remembering Allah often. But somebody who's involved in gambling, their mind is just in that. Okay, number two.
Number two, it destroys wealth and causes gamblers to suffer heavy financial losses and personal or legal problems.
Right? So we noted that gambling causes financial losses. Sister told us that she knows somebody who lost $200,000 gambling it away. Financial losses and personal problems. He lost his family. Legal problems. They're in debt, or they owe money to the Russians, and now now they have problems. Well, that's what a lot of the gambling is, on the black market or
It's
illegal.
funny you say that because she said that whoever is running this gambling site is from a different country. It's a foreign country, foreign entity.
Yeah, sometimes it is, and sometimes, and if you go back just a little bit before these apps, when these, with these bookies, it's a lot of it was mafia related, and a lot of it was run by the Italian mafia or the Russian mafia, and now you owe money to these people, and now what's that person doing to get to pay off that gambling debt? Now they have to go out and steal and do something. You remember Rocky? Rocky was a bouncer with the mafia because people had like debts, so he had to go collect them, right? That's where he started off. I don't know why I threw a movie reference in there, but it's a reality that now people, to pay off that debt, now they have to go commit or more illegal acts. So now they're just stuck. In Islam, it's protecting us from this outcome. All right, number three.
Number three, the thrill of gambling and the possibility of winning becomes addictive. If the gambler wins, he becomes greedier and gets carried away, hopeful to acquire more ill-gotten gains. If he loses, he does not give up easily and carries on gambling in the hope of getting back what he has lost. Both gain and loss stand in the way of productive work and constitute a creeping evil that destroys society.
All right, so we talked about that. Yep, gambling is very addictive and it's destructive. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the types of gambling, which is important as well. Anybody else want to read?
I'll read, types of gambling. Types of gambling, past and present, are many, and modern forms of gambling include the following. Playing a game in which the players stipulate that the winner will take some money. For instance, a group of people have a game of cards, each one of them setting aside a certain amount of money, and the winner takes it all.
Okay, so one type of gambling is playing a card game, let's say. And everybody pitches in money and the winner wins the pot. Poker, right? Or other types of card games where people are paying in, they're playing their chips, and now somebody wins it. Yes,
So bingo is gambling.
bingo is gambling. Some of these games we don't think about.
So is bingo gambling if you put money in to play and get a prize? Or like, say if you're with kids and everybody just has a little bingo card and the winner gets a prize?
Yeah, that's fine. If just the winner gets a prize, that's okay because somebody sponsored it and winner gets a prize. That's okay for those types of contests or games and stuff like that. But if everybody's pitching in, again, what happened? People lost,
Yes.
right? We don't think we'll get into the other ones, games of chance and stuff like that. But like even you know the games that we have at like Six Flags or the amusement parks or something where we put in money and then the claw tries to grab something or it doesn't grab something and you lose your money. This is also a form of gambling. We don't think about it. It's small. It's a small amount of money, but it's still not permissible. We don't think about these types of things a lot, but it falls into it. Okay, next, betting.
Betting, which is the act of risking money on the unknown result of an event. For instance, each gambler places a bet on a certain team in, say, a football match. And one can only win the bet if the team on which his bet is placed wins. Otherwise, the bet is lost, which means loss of money.
Right, so betting on contests, betting on sports games, things like that. This type of betting is also a type of gambling. Number 3.
Lottery, which is a type of gambling has the element of chance. In a lottery, lots, usually in a form of tickets, are purchased, and a lot is randomly selected to win a prize. Usually a large sum of money. For instance, one purchased a ticket for £1 and the hope of winning £1,000.
Right. So, lottery, again, another form of gambling, very, very ubiquitous. We see it everywhere. And again, not only is participating in these things not permissible, but also selling them. So if we have a gas station or something, we shouldn't be selling lottery and stuff in it. This is not permissible. Number 4.
All types of gambling, without exception, casino or casino, gambling games such as electronic and online gambling involve money that gamblers can either win or lose.
Okay, so again, casino games, slot machines, roulette, all these types of games that people play in casinos, or if you play them online, again, if you're losing money, people are losing money in it. This is gambling. This is not permissible. Any questions so far? I know we usually stop at 7:30, but I want to finish these last 2 pages, so we'll finish the chapter. If I have your permission. Right? All right. Example of business ethics, which Islam has stressed. So when the beauty of Islam is when certain things are not permissible, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also shows you, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also shows you, Islam shows you what things are permissible and what things that we should be doing. Right? Who would like to read?
I can,
But didn't you already read?
yes, but.
Wasn't there a sister Diana who didn't read?
Oh, yeah, you're right, I didn't read, okay. Honesty, Islam requires its adherents to be honest in their dealings with Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Indeed, honesty is one of the most important moral principles which testifies to a Muslim's devoutness. Its importance is indicated in a number of Quranic verses and traditions of the Prophet, including the following. Allah says, Allah commands you to deliver trust back to their owners.
Go, you keep going. Yeah, finish the whole column.
The prophet considers betraying the trust as one of the signs of hypocrisy. The signs of the hypocrite are three. When he speaks, he lies. When he promises, he breaks his promise. And when he is entrusted, he betrays the trust. Honesty is among the characteristics of the believers whom Allah calls successful because they honor their trust and their contracts among other traits. It is for this reason that the prophet considers those who do not fulfill the terms and conditions of the trust which are placed in their charge to have no faith. The person who does not fulfill the terms of his trust has no faith. The prophet was known by his honorific title of As-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful and trustworthy, before the advent of Islam, for he was the epitome of honesty in all his dealings.
Okay, honesty is something that is emphasized in Islam, um, in many ways. So, some of these verses of the Quran, and there's many, many others that emphasize this. If somebody trusts you with something, whether it be something monetary, they trust you with a secret, they trust you um, with anything, that you deliver its trust back to their owners, that you're honest with their trust. Betraying the trust is one of the signs of a hypocrite. And in one narration, it says, uh, the signs of a hypocrite are three. When he speaks, he lies. When he promises, he breaks his promise. And when he entrusts, when he's entrusted, he betrays his trust. So we don't. We try to be honest. We don't want to betray someone's trust. This is the characteristic of the hypocrites. And there's many other things that are said about this. So we should be honest at all times. Number two.
Truthfulness. Truthfulness and transparency are among the virtues that Islam has stressed. The prophet said the seller and the buyer have the right to keep or return goods as long as they have not parted. And if both parties speak the truth and describe the defects and qualities of the goods, their transaction will be blessed. However, if they tell lies or hide something, their transaction will be deprived of all blessing. He also said, be truthful, for truthfulness leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise. A man keeps on telling the truth until he becomes known as a truthful person. Some traders often have recourse to swearing falsely, claiming that their merchandise is of good quality in order to persuade the buyers to purchase it. Islam considers such an act one of the major sins. As the Prophet said, Allah will not speak to three types of people on the day of judgment, nor will he look at them, nor purify them, and they will have a severe punishment. Amongst these types, he mentioned those who swear falsely in order to sell their goods.
Okay, so truthfulness and transparency when we're selling, buying, whatever, is very important. Um, Truthfulness leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise. Um, Also, um, we see this a lot in the Muslim world, that to sell their goods, people will start swearing, "Oh, by Allah, this is the best quality," or "By Allah, I purchased this for this amount," and "By Allah, this has no defects." And um, this is not something that's permissible, to swear, to falsely swear, to sell their goods. And there's a hadith narrated here that Allah will not speak to three types of people on the day of judgment, nor will he look at them, nor will he purify them, and they will have a severe punishment. So there's three punishments. He will not speak to them, he will not look at them, he will not purify them, and they have a severe punishment. Four things. One of those is a person who falsely swears to sell their goods. So we should never do this. What are the other two, by the way, in this hadith, if anybody knows them?
The one who lacks protective jealousy.
No, not in this hadith.
Oh.
Anybody know? The manan, the person who does a favor to somebody and then reminds them of it later on.
Remember when I did this for you?
Yes.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay, I'll get to it. That's one. Second, so that's two, right? The one who swears, the one who they do a favor to somebody and then remind you of it later. And a third is what? Musbil, the person who drags their garments below their ankles. And this is for men only. They drag their garments below their ankles. This is also in this hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not speak to them on the day of judgment, nor will he look at them, nor will he purify them. And they'll have a severe punishment.
How do you say explanation for that? I forgot.
So a man shouldn't, this is a sign of arrogance, having your clothes for men being long. And so Islam has taught us that, the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that our clothes should not be below our ankles. So if I'm wearing like a thobe here or pants, they should be not dragging below my ankles. This is not permissible.
And even for the women, we're not allowed to have our dresses, it's the hadith, and I can't quote it, I'm paraphrasing. It should only be a handstand on the ground.
Yeah, there's a limitation to it, but the woman can obviously cover her feet with her. But for the men, it's not like that because it's a sign of arrogance, and there's no logical reason for it. Anybody who argues it, they just say, "Oh well, it's the fashion nowadays." Well, if your fashion is in opposition to what the Prophet ﷺ taught, then you should choose a new fashion. And this is something that, again, it's so widespread that people really don't think about it. They don't think it's something major, and they kind of ignore it. And this is something we really need to reflect on and see, how we can just do what the Prophet ﷺ is telling us. And a lot of times we may not think of the wisdom of things off the bat, but following him is obligatory on us. Let's finish the chapter in column number 3, please.
Proficiency. A Muslim, no matter what his occupation may be, must carry out his duties with proficiency and to the best of his ability, making efficiency his guiding principle in all his endeavors. Allah has prescribed proficiency in all things and requires Muslims to observe it in all aspects of life, even when doing things that may, on the surface, seem unimportant, such as hunting and slaughtering. The Prophet said in this regard, Allah has prescribed proficiency in all things. Thus, if you kill well, and if you slaughter well. Let each one of you sharpen his blade and let him spare suffering to the animal he slaughtered.
So, actually, keep going.
Once he attended the funeral of a man and gave instructions to his companions to level the grave and carry out the burial process efficiently. Then he turned to them and said, doing so will neither benefit the deceased nor harm him. However, if a worker does any work, Allah loves to see him do it well and with efficiency. Another narration reads, if any of you undertakes to do any work, Allah loves to see him do it well and with efficiency.
So, proficiency is something that's encouraged in Islam. Whatever we do, we should do it well. If we're entrusted to work for a company, we should fulfill our duties to the best of our abilities, not just be lazy and kind of, because that's another form of dishonesty. That a certain company has um, hired us to work from certain time to certain time, and we're kind of just dogging it. Okay, we're showing up when we want to, or kind of disappearing without telling anybody, or just doing a really bad job of our jobs when we can do better.
What if you get paid the minimum wage?
You should still do your best. It doesn't. Nobody said to go above and beyond, but it's at least whatever your duties are, do them well, right? Um, and if you don't like getting paid minimum wage, you should build your skill set so you can get paid more than minimum wage. Um, and in all things, on all things that we do, we should do them well. We should do them proficiently and efficiently, and not be wasteful. So these are some of the guidelines and business ethics which Islam has encouraged. Alhamdulillah, we have finished the chapter on financial transactions. Does anybody have any questions for our class today? We have a quiz.
Can we skip the quiz in the intro?
Oh, we have plenty of time to eat. Quiz doesn't take that long, does it? Let me see. Where is the quiz thing?
You see the question in the chat?
Which one is it? Could you read it to me, or
It says, is it authentic information?
He answered that,
Then,
yeah.
no, I know it's supposed to, but I know he answered that question already.
right? About horse racing and camel racing, right? Okay. Okay. My quizzes. Where's my library? Okay.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so should you, sign off from the live?
Should I sign off for the live? Yes, I should sign off for the
They
live.
didn't want to come.
All right. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Oh, okay. Somebody in the chat wants to take the quiz. Okay, I will put that in the chat. Okay, so joinmyquiz.com.
Is it myquiz.com?
Joinmyquiz.com. Yeah, it's the whole thing. Joinmyquiz.com. And then you have to enter the code 106940.
Say it again.
106940. Oh, I see winner in there.
What is the code?
106940. Mughira, you can't take the quiz. Get out of there. Do you want to remove this participant? Yes, I kicked him out. It's a power play.
I know about that, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, it's joinmyquiz.com.
Of course. I'll change mine now. It's his outfit though. Wow. It's your little character.
It's a fraud. All right. First question coming up. What's with this music?
Necessary.
Music is definitely not necessary.